My hands were shaking so badly the ink bled when I signed my name on the final line. $256. That was the price of a house the town had already sentenced to death. The roof sagged like a tired back, the porch leaned as if it were ashamed to stand straight, and every rumor on Maple Street said the place was beyond saving. But I stood in that doorway with my 3-year-old daughter pressed against my hip and saw a future nobody else could imagine. They saw rot and ruin. I saw walls that could learn warmth again. They saw danger. I saw shelter. 8 months from that moment, what rose from those broken boards would leave the same neighbors silent with disbelief. But this story was never really about lumber and nails. It was about what happens when desperation meets resolve. I was a waitress with aching feet, a single mother with an empty savings account and a heart still bruised by abandonment. Yet something inside me refused to accept that this was the end of our story. As sunlight slipped through holes in the roof and fell across the dusty floor like scattered stars, my daughter whispered that the sky had followed us inside. In that innocent moment, something fierce took root in me. I didn't buy a ruin that day. I bought a chance to begin again. And I promised myself that, no matter how hard it became, I would turn that impossible chance into our home. The listing found me during a break I almost skipped. 43 minutes between coffee refills and syrup-sticky plates, scrolling mindlessly through a community board while exhaustion weighed on my shoulders like wet wool. Then I saw the headline mocked with cruel humor. Who would be crazy enough to buy this dump? The photos were brutal: shattered windows, water-scarred walls, floors buckled like warped ribs. But when the price appeared at the bottom, $256, I forgot how to breathe. That number replayed in my mind all afternoon, through every order and every forced smile. That night, after my daughter fell asleep in the twin bed we shared in our tiny studio, I sat at the crooked table that served as desk, dinner space, and prayer altar. I counted every dollar I'd saved through 2 years of double shifts, skipped meals, worn shoes, and quiet sacrifice. $892, 2 years of scraping survival. Buying that house would erase a third of everything I owned, but it would erase rent forever. No landlord, no eviction threats, no explaining to my child why the heater and hot plate couldn't run at the same time. My mother used to say a house wasn't built from walls but from peace. I had been homeless in my spirit since the morning my husband vanished without a proper goodbye. That night, I chose to chase peace instead of fear. The man on the phone laughed when I asked if the house was still available. His uncle had lived there alone for decades after loss hollowed out the rooms, and now the place was nothing but an obligation he wanted gone. "If you've got cash and sign the waiver, it's yours by sunset," he said. By afternoon, I met him in a quiet coffee shop and read every word of the contract like my life depended on it, because it did. When I laid those worn bills on the table, they trembled in my hands. 2 keys slid toward me with a faded tag that read Maple. The house looked worse in person. Neighbors watched softly from porches as I pulled up. My daughter asked if it was really ours. I told her yes with a courage I wasn't sure I had. The door screamed when it opened. Inside, mildew and darkness waited like warning signs. I held out my phone for light, scanning buckled floors and sealing wounds. Then she tugged my fingers, pointed upward, and whispered that stars had fallen into our new house. Sunlight pierced the broken roof in dozens of bright circles. Something inside my chest cracked open and softened. Broken recognizes broken. In that moment, I knew the house and I spoke the same language. We were both wounded, and we were both still standing. The first weeks nearly broke me. With $9 worth of damaged tools and library books that smelled of dust and hope, I began pulling up ruined flooring, one aching square foot at a time. My daughter colored near the doorway while I worked until my hands thickened with blisters and my back hummed with pain. By the 3rd week, the truth revealed itself brutally in the attic: gutted beams, spreading water damage, rot that reached deeper than my courage. One night, I collapsed on the filthy floor and cried until my throat burned. There's a kind of crying that only happens when survival finally demands payment. My daughter found me there and wrapped her small arms around my neck, whispering that she loved me. Right there on broken boards and shattered expectations, I made an unbreakable vow: I would not quit. Help came in ways I did not expect. A silver-haired neighbor brought lemonade and quiet understanding. A contractor I served breakfast to offered leftover materials and skilled hands in exchange for nothing but a meal. Men worked from dawn to dusk to give me a roof strong enough to face winter. I learned the language of construction beside them. Starter strips, underlayment, drip edges. Knowledge replaced panic. When they left that evening and the roof stood solid under the setting sun, I felt something return to me I had lost long before the house. Belief. With the roof secure, the house began to breathe again. A returned toilet found its way into my bathroom by way of a plumber who believed in trades instead of debts. Discarded wood became shelves. Scratched oak floors hidden beneath rot were coaxed back to life under weeks of sanding. Each small victory stitched another thread of dignity into my spirit. Then one afternoon, 5 months into the work, the past stepped through my doorway wearing a familiar face. My ex-husband stood inside the home I had rebuilt with hands he once abandoned. He spoke of claims and legal rights as if he had planted a single nail. Fear surged, but it didn't win. I stood before him with months of sacrifice in my bones and told him the truth he had avoided for 2 years. He left smaller than he entered. That night, I burned the words I never sent him and felt a weight lift that I hadn't known I still carried. But hope is fragile when money is thin. By winter's edge, I had $47 and no heat. An electrician's verdict balanced my future on a sentence. When he said the wiring could hold if I was careful, I collapsed in gratitude. 2 space heaters became our winter sun. We lived in one warm room, bundled together against the cold, not rich in comfort, but rich in certainty that the house was finally ours to keep. The truest magic arrived in quiet evenings after long shifts. I painted stars across my daughter's ceiling with glow-in-the-dark paint that cost $3 precious. Constellations bloomed above her bed like promises stitched from light. I built her furniture from pallets and repaired what others discarded. When she gasped the first night those stars awakened in the dark, every hardship bowed before that sound. Months later, deep inside a stubborn wall, I discovered the house's secret heart, an original brick wall hidden for generations. Brick by brick, I uncovered it through the night. Red, amber, burgundy, raw, imperfect, luminous. As dawn touched it, I understood the lesson waiting beneath both plaster and pain. What the world covers up, time preserves. What seems ruined may only be buried. I restored that wall with trembling care, filling each crumbling joint like I had filled the fractures in myself. When it finally stood sealed and radiant, it became the soul of our living room. By early spring, the transformation reached its quiet completion. Our kitchen glowed with reclaimed wood. Our bathroom breathed with life again. My daughter slept under stars that would never fall through broken roofs again. We didn't move into a perfect house. We moved into a truthful one, built from courage instead of comfort. When the neighbors finally walked through the finished rooms, silence told me everything. The man who had once mocked my effort stood shaking under the weight of his own doubt and offered an apology that tasted like healed pride. A small paper ran the story. A woman with tired eyes and 2 small children read it and found the courage to knock on my door. I made her tea, let her children play under glowing stars, and told her the truth. How many times I wanted to quit, how fear kept knocking, how I kept answering with one more step forward anyway. Summer warmed the yard I had scraped clean with blistered hands. On one golden evening, the people who saved me without asking gathered beneath a sky no longer falling through broken roofs. They lifted glasses to the idea that the impossible is just another word for unfinished. Laughter moved through the garden like wind through wheat. I understood then that this house was never built by a single woman. It was raised by generous hands answering quiet courage. After the guests left and my daughter slept, I walked through each room and touched the story written into every surface. Then I opened a notebook and wrote Phase 2. Not because the house was broken, but because living always asks for growth. Later that night, my daughter asked if we would always live here. I told her yes with a certainty earned through hardest truth. I listened to the gentle noises of a house that had learned how to stand again, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft tick of the clock, the whisper of old wood trusting new repair. This house had saved me as surely as I had saved it. I began this journey with $256 and a heart abandoned in the cold. I ended it with a home built from perseverance and a spirit that no longer waited to be chosen. The stars that once fell through a broken roof were gone, but brighter ones now lived where they always should have, steady and constant. This story was never just about a condemned house brought back to life.